Hi, Alicia here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm here to talk about all the books that I read in June. Hey pals, how's it going? I hope you are doing well. If you're new here, this is the place where we talk about books. Today I'm here to talk about the books that I read in June. This month I read 11 books, which I think is the most amount of books that I've read in a month this year. I was really inspired by reading this month, and I really enjoyed everything that I did read. Out of the 11 books that span a range of genres from contemporary to horror to short story collections, they were all between 3 and 5 stars. There was no books that I hated, and a ton of new books that I love that I'm really excited to show to you today. I will just give a little disclaimer. If you hear soft snoring, it is because I am filming right next to a little gentleman, Copper. He is my parents' dog that I'm hanging out with for the next week. So just don't mind him. He's just doing a little snooze. So yeah, let's just go talk about some books. So in terms of the order that I will go through these books, I'll just go through them in the order of ranking. So I'll start with the lowest ranking and make my way to the highest, though, like I said, there were no books that I didn't like this year. They were all really good reads. So first up, I have Women Talking by Miriam Toews. This book was published in 2018, and this is one of those books that the more I think about it, the more my opinion on it changes. And I'd like to hear what other people think who have read this book. So this book takes place over 2 days only. And this book is based on a true story, and it is following two families of women living in a Mennonite community. And they were, over the course of probably years, in the night, these women were drugged and like brutally raped and assaulted by the men in their community, sometimes even men within their own families, like their own family members were doing this to them. So then it was finally, they were finally caught. All of these men were apprehended and charged and arrested and whatnot. And now this book takes place over 48 hours, and they are talking about what they think that they should do. So they've kind of laid out 3 options. One of them is doing nothing, just going on with their lives and pretending like nothing happened. 2 is to stay and then fight for justice, and so that something like this doesn't happen to them again. And then the 3rd option is for them to leave this Mennonite community and go somewhere else, and whatever that means. So they are in this room for 2 days. The whole book is essentially the minutes of their meeting, and the minutes are being curated by this third-party man named August Epp, who also has this very tenuous relationship with this Mennonite community. And so yeah, so when you read the book, it's kind of like, when I kind of got to the end, it was one of those books where I'm like, huh, like, did anything even happen in this book? And I felt almost a little unsatisfied. But the more I think about it, like, the more I realize that that's not what this book is about. This isn't a plot-driven book. This is a philosophical debate and like conversation-driven book, because these women are living in a community and within a religion that is designed to oppress them and suppress their rights. Like, they are basically told that if they don't forgive their rapists, they can't go to heaven. So they're just, the whole book is them having like these different points of view around how they should be able to react and live in this community while retaining their, their dignity. And there are all the different points of view are in this book, like on all sides of the spectrum. So that's where a lot of like the contention within the story takes place. So the more I think about it, like the more powerful this book was. The only thing that I didn't like about this book is that it is told through the lens of a man, and I'm not sure why Miriam Toews did that. And I would like somebody else to comment to me on this who has read the book, because it is about these women talking and the women's point of view and their thoughts and their what's going on with them and what they want to do, but it is a man who is curating these minutes, and it is a man through which the reader absorbs the information, and he's obviously adding his own layer of information to the plot. So that just seemed a little strange to me, but maybe I missed something. Maybe there was something really really key going on there. But this is a thinker. So if you're looking for one that's going to make you think about it for a while after, I do definitely recommend this. I gave this 3 stars, and I'm still debating on that. Maybe I've thought about it a lot since then, so maybe I'll rate this higher. I'm not sure, but we've been talking. So next up, we've got The Forgotten Island by David Sodergren. This is a horror that was published in 2018. And just this book. This book is wild. So The Forgotten Island follows a group of 20-somethings from Scotland. They are on vacation in Thailand, and they are just the worst. Like this is definitely one of those horror slashers that is following a group of young adults that are garbage, and you don't care about them. You actively dislike them. Like, they are just like appropriating the culture around them. They don't give a shit about what they're doing. They are the worst kind of tourists. They are the worst kind of people. And they are just, you know, they're on vacation in Thailand. It's all about them. It's all about them having a good time. And more side characters are introduced that you're just like, oh, get me out of here. Like, you're like the 8th wheel on a journey that you don't want to be on. But you're following these people on their vacation doing just the young, dumb shit that they do. It is from the point of view of one of the characters. I can't remember her name. Alice, something like that. I could be wrong. Anna. Anna is her name. So they're on vacation in Thailand. They decide to go to this like rave where they go do a lot of drugs. And then they end up stealing a boat and making their way to this island. And when they get to this island, it just goes crazy from there. Like, this island is not on the map of Thailand. It has been removed from this map. So you gotta wonder why this island has been removed from the map. So I don't even want to say anything about what goes on in this book because it is insane. And I never in a million years would have been able to predict what was going on this island. So that was fun. About this book, I thought that the writing was really bad. Like, the dialogue was almost cringy bad. However, the body horror and just like the innovative ways to destroy human life in this book was exceptional. I have never read anything quite like it. There was about, I think there was 2 scenes in this book where I actively was gagging reading it because it was so disgusting. Like, it was disgusting. And I loved that. Like, I loved a book being able to give me a visceral reaction. So I have very kind of conflicting feelings about this book. On one hand, D for writing, but on the other hand, A+ for just imagination. So The Forgotten Island was a book that I definitely do not regret reading. I really enjoyed it. I loved how it ended. The ending was just impeccable. But yeah, if you're looking for a summer slasher that will just gross you right out, but is not going to change your life in any way, shape, or form, I cannot direct you anywhere other than The Forgotten Island. I gave this 4 stars. Next up, we've got True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik. This is a 2020 release, and I just finished this last night, so this one is very fresh in my mind. This is a short novella horror. I think this is a debut too. I will, yeah, it is. This was her first novel. And this was really, really good. Like, I wouldn't call this a horror. This is more of a dark contemporary, I might say. True crime follows two siblings, Susie and Lim, and they are children of severe, like, physical and sexual abuse from their parents. Like, it is really disturbing. They are essentially the children of psychopaths, sociopaths, and what that upbringing does to someone psychologically is explored in this book. And this book kind of follows them from a critical moment in their development on a murder spree, essentially, that they go on. Susie and Lim they're not sympathetic characters, but you also feel a lot of empathy for what has happened to them, and are also very disturbed by how they are reacting to this situation. This book was really dark, really sad, really depressing, really grim. It doesn't make you feel good ever, at all, even one time. Like, there was zero feel-good moments in this book, but the writing was beautiful. I just am so curious for what she has to write in the future. This is one of those books when you just feel like, wallowing in something real shit. Check out True Crime. I loved her voice. And yeah, I just want to read more from her. I gave this 4 stars for this cute little novella. That's not cute at all. Nothing cute about it. No. Next up, we've got a short story collection. I read Slapboxing with Jesus by Victor LaValle. This was published in 1999. And these are 12 interconnected contemporary short stories that all follow Black youth in New York City. And I say interconnected, the stories don't really have anything to do with one another specifically, but they are all following a group of youth in the same time and place. It is all taking place in the late 80s, early 90s, and is just following these, like, racialized communities as they grow up. They are all coming of age stories, but very much either on the cusp of or at the critical moment for coming of age. So these stories are, again, dark, violent, grim. Some of them have a hopeful twinge to them, but some of them have a very, like, foreboding twinge to them, because you very much are only getting a slice of life. Like, there is no fully developed character here. There is no fully developed story here. You are just kind of like panning across New York City and getting these, like, bite-sized slice of life glimpses. So with that being said, some of the stories felt really unfulfilling because, you might just be popping in on a boy chatting with his father at a diner. And in that story, it was a young Black boy who was meeting his father for the first time, and his father is a white cop. So he's just confronting what that means for him, and how he needs to feel about that, or how he can and should and just realistically feel about that. So that's just a conversation. Like, that story is just a conversation. You don't get to see anything else. And I mean, that's a give and take that I really appreciate. It's like, this is just one moment in his life and his story isn't done. I'd maybe categorize this as, like, harsh realism. A lot of the topics discussed in these stories is the friendships in these little groups. Toxic masculinity is talked about a lot. For this conversation to be happening in, like, the 90s, Victor LaValle was, like, very self-aware. Yeah, they are really eye-opening, and they are not meant to introduce a resolution to the reader. Like, he's not trying to package anything up for you and being like, here's what's happening and here's what you have to do about it. No, he's painting a picture that is sometimes really hard to look at. This is the first book that I have read by Victor LaValle, and again, I love short stories. I got a lot out of this collection. I could see how some people might feel like they want a little bit more after reading it, but that's a good thing. Like, that means you go out and you keep reading and you keep looking and you keep learning. So again, this is my first book by Victor LaValle, and I can't wait to read more from him. He has a couple other horrors that I have on my radar. This isn't a horror, this is very much a contemporary. But I'm definitely a fan now. So I gave this 4 stars and definitely recommend it if you like short stories and are interested in reading Victor LaValle. Next up, I've got another short story collection. I have Things Are Good Now by Djamila Ibrahim. This was published in 2018. And this is another contemporary short story collection. There are 9 short stories in here, and Djamila Ibrahim is from Ethiopia, and she moved to Canada in 1990, and she worked in, you know, citizenship and immigration in Canada when she was here. And I guess she's an author now. She's publishing books. Maybe she still works for citizenship and immigration. But these short stories, I guess they're interconnected the same way that Slapboxing with Jesus is interconnected, where they are all following different people, men, women, children, families, as they have come to Canada for one reason or another. So they have come here to, you know, escape war. They've come here for a fresh start. They've come here for a new life. They were brought here kind of against their will, and it is following the experience of immigrants, refugees, new citizens in Canada or anywhere, and what that means for a person and how that can affect a person. These stories discuss things like displacement, racism, cultural clashes in a new environment. I feel like, again, there is some hopeful elements to these stories, but I felt overwhelmingly on the kind of sad, thoughtful, and reflective side. There's one quote in here that I feel like kind of perfectly captures the vibe of the collection. With each step he took toward assimilation, with each hurdle he overcame to be just like everyone else, he'd slowly shed layers of himself, losing ground on something he can't put a finger on, becoming invisible to himself. So yeah, it's very much about the compromises that people make when they do come to a new place. So Djamila Ibrahim is really kind of exploring how a lot of people came here out of necessity, not necessarily because they wanted to, and then what they had to lose of themselves when they did come here. She's really just putting the humanity into these stories. And like, there is a very broad array of perspective here, and it was, again, beautifully written, just sad but also important. It is difficult for people to come to a new country. It is difficult to, you know, search for like the freedom that you need in your life, that better life. Like, things don't just become perfect as soon as you come to Canada. This again is another book that gave me a lot to think about. I gave this 4 stars as well. Next up, I read Taaqtumi, an anthology of Arctic horror stories. There are 9 short stories in this collection. They are all written by different authors. All of the authors are own voices. They are either Inuk voices or people who grew up and live in the Northwest Territories. This is a collection, this is a horror anthology that is exploring the isolation of the Arctic, but then also the other terrors that haunt those places, whether that is mythology, lore, or the ever-present threat of colonialism and white settler violence. I loved this collection. I got this as a gift. I read it immediately and I love it. And I just want to give this collection away to all of my friends. You get a great mix of stories in here. Like, some of them are you know, very, very much about the isolation of place and of environment. There's one where there is a woman with a baby who is being pursued by a polar bear. So very real, just like environment horror. And then there are more sinister ones about the ominous, creeping, and ever-present threat of white people. So I loved this. I think there was only one story in this collection that didn't really do anything for me. These are great stories, great voices, a lot of authors that I've never heard of, and I'm really thankful to have read more from and want to go hunt down more of. I cannot mention this one enough. I gave this 4 stars. Next up, I read another 2020 release. I read The Subtweet by Vivek Shraya. The Subtweet is a contemporary slice of life novel. This follows 2 women of color. It follows Neela and Rukmini, and they are both musicians in the indie music scene. And this novel is very much about friendship, about growing and maintaining friendships through your art, but it is also a commentary on the either conscious or unconscious decision for people of color to whitewash their own art to appeal to a larger audience, like a larger white audience. So this book is about 2 musicians, Neela and then also Rukmini. Neela has been making music and posting it online for a long time in her career. She's very prevalent in her community. She does a lot of indie music shows. She's very popular in her kind of group and social circle. And then Rukmini is another artist, and she does a cover of one of Neela's songs, kind of like a more like poppy electronic cover. And then Rukmini gets famous from this cover. Like she explodes, she goes on tour, she just gets so many accolades that all started from her doing this cover of one of Neela's songs. And Neela is, you know, she's a little bit jealous because it's like, why didn't I get famous for the song that I made, and why did she get famous when she did a cover of it, and what did she do differently? I loved this story. I thought it had a lot of really important commentary. It talked a lot about, you know, if you're into like indie music and the indie music scene, this is so good. I love Vivek Shraya. I have read a couple other, I've read her nonfiction, I'm Afraid of Men, and then also her short story, graphic novel, Death Threat. This is the first full-length novel I've read by her. It might be the first full-length novel she's written. I could be mistaken. But I love this, and I definitely recommend it. I gave this 4 stars. Next up, I read another 2020 release. I read Lakewood by Megan Giddings. I listened to this book on Scribd, and holy moly, this book was incredible again. And this one also, I think, was a debut. Like, this was an incredible debut. This is a contemporary fiction horror, definitely horror. Lakewood I would categorize as kind of a nice mashup of The Handmaid's Tale meets Get Out meets Black Mirror. Lakewood follows a woman named Lena. I'm imagining kind of in her early 20s, and Lena has a mother and a grandmother, and this book starts when Lena's grandmother passes away from cancer. And her grandmother was very much the, you know, matriarch in their family, and she was also the carer and provider for her and her mother. Lena's mother has a lot of health issues and some disabilities that makes her unable to work. So Lena's grandmother was the one who was really taking care of her mother and her when she was young. And now that her grandmother is gone and Lena is, you know, she's in her early 20s, she is now immediately responsible for also taking care of her mother. And so she doesn't have a job, like she doesn't know where to go, and she doesn't know what to do. And so Lena finds an ad for a medical study called Lakewood. It's like it's actually really vague. Like, it doesn't really say what Lakewood is. It's just like a medical health study that she can get paid to be a part of. So she's like, well, I'm desperate. I need benefits. I need money. I need to take care of my mom. So I guess I'll go try out. So Lena goes to this facility where they first do like 2 weeks of testing on her, where they just like poke, prod, pull, talk, they just violate her in every way, shape, or form to test her body to see if it is suitable for whatever this medical study is. And then she passes. And so then they're like, okay, we're going to send you to this facility called Lakewood, where you will be paid primo dollarinos and you will have medical benefits for your whole family. So she's like, sweet, I can take care of my mother. That's all I care about. So she uproots her life, goes to this facility, and then the events of the novel take place from there. And I will just say, so when she gets to the facility, she very quickly realizes that everyone who has been accepted into the Lakewood study is a person of color. Lena herself is a Black woman. So she gets there and she immediately notices this and is kind of like, oh, well, let's just see what happens. So this book had a lot of commentary in it. It was beautifully written. It was horrifying, and I gave this 4 stars as well. Next up, I listened to another book on audio. I listened to Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is from 2017, and this is a contemporary YA, hard-hitting YA that is also written in verse. It is the first book that I have listened to or read written in verse, and I enjoyed it so much. Long Way Down is following a teenage boy. I think he's only 13, and his brother has just been killed in a drive-by shooting when they were playing at the park. And his brother was older than him. His brother was maybe 16 or 17. And he is, you know, his family has been destroyed because of this violence. It's just kind of reflecting on everything that his brother had taught him and told him. And his brother's like, there are 3 rules that you must abide by. No crying, no snitching, and you gotta get revenge. So this whole book takes place in 1 minute, which is incredible. It was amazing to see. The whole book takes place in 1 minute, and it follows this boy as he is leaving his apartment with a gun and going down the elevator, presumably to go and get revenge for his brother's death. And every chapter is a stop. So he's on, I guess he's on like the 6th floor or whatever. So every chapter is a stop on the elevator where he is visited by a ghost from his past, like a la you know, A Christmas Carol, a very like Dickensian tale. So this was beautiful. It was heartbreaking. It has a lot of conversations around, you know, systemic violence and the cycle of violence that a lot of youth find themselves in America, kind of trapped in this cycle of violence. It was so beautiful and so emotional, and the audiobook is also narrated by Jason Reynolds. So that really did a lot for the storytelling in it. I love this. I gave this 4.5 stars, and again, just want to read more from this author in the future. And finally, I have 2 5-star books. I read 2 5-star books this month, and just to kind of put that into perspective, I think for the rest of the year before this, I had only had 2 5-star books. So I don't really throw out 5 stars willy-nilly, but there were 2 books that I read this month that were just so damn good and so damn powerful. The first one is a non-fiction book. This was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. This was published in 2015, and this is a collection of 2 essays from the author to his 15-year-old son. In these essays, Ta-Nehisi Coates is just, he is exploring endemic and systemic racism against Black people as a warning from father to son. And this book, it was so intimate that when you are reading it as a white person, you almost feel like you aren't allowed to be here. Like you shouldn't have the luxury of seeing this like intimate conversation. But it was so eye-opening and so like passionate. He's not trying to explain away why racism is. He's not trying to introduce steps for the reader to take. He's pretty much just telling his son that he loves him and that you will face racism in your life. It exists. And then that's just something that you have to deal with as a Black man. There is a quote in this book that I have been thinking about ever since I read it. Black people love their children with a kind of obsession. You are all we have, and you come to us endangered. Yeah, so this book is, you know, it's a paternal foreshadowing from a father to his son, but as an onlooker who literally just gets the gift to be able to read these letters, it's a call to action that we need to do something. We need to change something. He also had a lot of really good points on whiteness and what whiteness means and the danger of whiteness to people of color, but also to white people, in the sense that whiteness is a construct. Whiteness doesn't exist. Like the people who believe they are white are kind of clinging to this concept that doesn't mean anything. White people have a culture that they have lost, and they are now upholding, you know, some sort of false concept and false idol that is so dangerous to themselves and people of color, everyone else in the world. This was an incredible book, incredibly accessible, and is a must-read for everyone. I gave this 5 stars. And finally, the last book that I have to share with you today is Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead. And I finished reading this book right after I filmed my mid-year book freakout tag. And had I finished this first, this would have been so far the best book I have read in 2020. Johnny Appleseed, published in 2018, and is the best book I have read so far this year, and quite possibly one of the best books I have ever read in my life. This book blew me away. I have never quite read anything like Johnny Appleseed. The storytelling and the style of writing was incredible. Johnny Appleseed follows a young two-spirit indigiqueer glitter princess named John. He is in his early 20s, late teens, early 20s, and he has left the reservation that he grew up on. He's now living in Winnipeg. This book is loosely surrounding the death of John's stepfather. He gets a note that his stepfather has passed away, and he is now just trying to raise enough money to get back to the reservation to go to his stepfather's funeral. So that is like loosely the thread that ties this book together. But every chapter, there are short chapters in this book, and every chapter is kind of just like a fleeting memory that takes you somewhere else in John's life. So it's completely non-linear. There is no time or place that really attaches each of these memories, but they are very much kind of fleshing out John as a person from childhood to now, experiences in his life that have shaped him. They are stories of his family, of his grandmother, of growing up as a queer person on a reservation, and then also being a queer Indigenous person in Winnipeg, of discovering his sexuality. This book he is so honest and he is so raw, and he gives you so much storytelling, and he tells you so much in this book that, like, as a reader, I was like, oh, like, you know, almost clutching my pearls reading this book. It was so open, it was so sexy, also often heartbreaking and gross and violent. And he's just telling, it's a kind of like a slice of life of a queer Indigenous person, and this is an Own Voices story. When I got to the end, I was almost shocked that this book was fiction. Like, it felt like a memoir of someone, you know, untethering the soul of their life and giving it to you as a gift. I got so much out of this book. I was so touched by it. I was so moved by it. The writing is absolutely beautiful. I have never read a voice like this. I have never had an experience reading quite like this. To read something that is so non-linear and so kind of just like, you know, pieced together like dream fragments, but really have you so rooted in one place, it was profound, and I loved this. And if there was any book this year that really got me feeling something, Jonny, Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead is incredible. On my you know, top five list of best books I've ever read. Big old 5 stars. So there you have it. Those were the 11 books that I read in the month of June. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought. Let me know if you want to read any of these. I really love hanging out with you guys. Thank you guys for being here. If you guys are still here, you're just the best. Let me know what you read in June and what you thought about what you read. And let me know what you plan to read in July. Let's just talk about some books. So until next time, see you, bye!